You're listening to Plane Crash, the book by Michael Diamond as retold to the kids of the Watertown SDA Church Junior Sabbath School. This is a story of one man's survival and God's faithful, miraculous rescuing power. Let's go.
Chapter 1. Wow, this is great, Mike Chambers thought as he flew high above the ocean along the coast of California. Nothing he'd ever seen could compare with the dramatic beauty around him. Mountains capped with clouds jagged into the sea. Lofty cliffs, like many towered sandcastles, guarded the sandy coves dotting the coastline. Waves crested with white pearls washed the shores. He felt like one of the seagulls sailing on the wind currents off the cliffs. I can almost smell the salty air, he mused. And to think, heaven is going to be more beautiful than this? I won't need a plane to fly there. Mike knew that soon his flight would end and he would have to touch Earth again. The sun was slipping down beyond the blue Pacific as he sailed on the winds of the sky. It's taking longer than I planned. Mike looked at his instruments. The headwinds are slowing me down. I'd better extend my flight plan or they'll think I've crashed. This is 2499 Juliet, Mike called on the radio to Oakland Flight Service. Go ahead, 2499 Juliet. A voice crackled above the roar of the engine. I need to extend my flight time 1 hour. What is your location? I just turned inland from the coast, heading toward San Francisco Bay. Roger. Your flight plan is extended. Like a host turning on the lights for a guest, the city turned on her evening lights to welcome Mike. His birthplace glittered in the waters as he flew over the Oakland Bay Bridge. Now, how far to Novato Airport from here? In the orange glow from his instruments, Mike checked the charts on the empty seat next to him. About 30 miles north, he calculated. At 100 miles per hour, I'll be there in about 20 minutes. Mike pushed on the yoke, pointing the nose of his plane down from 8,000 feet at the northern part of the bay. The sun was gone now, and it was dark. Mike was only a student pilot. He'd never flown at night before, and never on this long a flight or so far from home. Nervous and wide-eyed, he kept checking the charts and looking out the window, trying to spot the runway lights. Mike knew there was a huge hill next to the Novato Airport, but he couldn't see it. A few weeks earlier, a twin-engine plane had crashed into it in the dark. "You remember that hill?" a friend at work warned him the day before. "A dentist and 3 others burned to death on it. So could you." Mike switched on his landing lights and the hill loomed out from the darkness. His hands tightened on the yoke. "Lord, help me to land safely." He grabbed the mic, his knuckles turning white as he spoke. "This is 2499 Juliet, calling Novato Tower. Come in." Seconds passed in silence as he awaited a reply. "I need to know which direction to land from," Mike worried. "This is 2499 Juliet, requesting landing instructions. Come in." No answer. It's after 7 o'clock, Mike thought, glancing at his watch. Maybe the flight office is closed. Small town, small airport. Mike looked down at the airport. Where's their windsock? He wondered as he circled. That could tell me if I should land from the north or the south. Mike searched intensely. I can't see it. I've been fighting a headwind from the north all afternoon, though, and I need to land into the wind, so that means my approach should be from the south. Mike positioned the Cessna 150 accordingly. He flew lower and lower, 2,500 feet, 1,500 feet, everything looked good, 500 feet. Suddenly, a twin-engine commuter plane appeared out of nowhere, coming straight at him. Mike's heart jumped up to his throat. The plane's lights, huge belly, and thundering noise seemed to bear right down into his cockpit. "Left, Lord, left! Have him bank to his left!" Mike banked to his left, and the commuter roared clear on his right. "Thank you, Lord," Mike thought, shaking. But now he was headed towards that killer hill. He banked sharply to his right and cleared it. "Thank you again, Lord." The hill must have hidden the commuter plane until the last moment, he realized. "Hey, is that Mike's plane up there?" asked Alan, Mike's 6'3" brother, to the rest of his family, who were waiting for Mike on the ground. "I'll flash the lights from my Scout to signal him." Alan jumped into his 4-wheel drive vehicle. But Mike didn't see his brother's lights flashing on the ground. He circled above, waiting for the commuter to land. Then Mike landed the same way. He taxied to the front of the airport's small terminal and turned off the engine. "Praise God, I made it," he said. He climbed out of the plane. "Wow," Alan exclaimed. "That was close." "Sure was, son," Mike's father said, hugging him. "I landed against the direction of the wind," Mike said. "I couldn't see the windsock." "Well, we've been waiting here 2 hours," Mike's mother said, "and all the other planes landed the same way you just tried to." Mike learned later that the winds died down after dark, and so aircraft were starting to land in the normal direction for that field. "I was praying for you," his mother said. "Thanks, Mom," he replied. "I need all the prayers I can get." "You must be hungry, Mike," his father said. "Let's go." "Maybe it was premature for your instructor to sign you off on this long a trip," his dad said as they walked to the parking lot. "Maybe so, but I'm here now and I have to get back." "I hope this isn't an omen for tomorrow's flight," Alan said. "It's a long 500 miles back to Southern California. Anything could happen." "I don't believe in omens," Mike replied, "but I do believe in prayer. God will be with me." Chapter 2. It was a hot August afternoon in New York. The damp heat flowed through the open window of the Smithtown High School administrative office. "You sure you want to be a pilot?" Mike's guidance counselor asked him. "Yeah," Mike told him. "Ever since I can remember, I've wanted to fly." "You're entering your final year here at Smithtown High School, Mike," the counselor said. "According to your test results, you show a great deal of mechanical aptitude. Have you ever considered auto mechanics?" "I like working on cars, but I love flying," Mike replied. He stared out the window through a maple tree into the blue skies. "Your grades are very good in automotive," the counselor continued, studying the test results in front of him. "You qualify for the automotive training program." He looked over his glasses at Mike. "What do you think?" "What does it entail?" Mike asked above the whirring of the small fan blowing in the corner. "You'd go to your regular classes during the day. In the afternoon, you'd be bused to Wilson Tech Automotive and Comic. If automotive isn't what you really want, you could still go into flying after graduation." "Could I take my '55 Chevy convertible instead of the bus? It's old, but it could make the daily trip all right." "I'm afraid not. School has a policy on that, but there are times when students do take their cars in to work on. You'd have to be clear with your instructor. You might take it that your answer is yes." Sure. Sign me up. I'm always interested in learning more about fixing cars." Mike graduated that year with 2 diplomas, a high school diploma and an automotive technology diploma, but he was still more interested in airplanes than in cars. Soon after graduation, he got a job as a refueler at MacArthur Airport, Long Island, New York. After 2 months at MacArthur, he went to work for Grumman's Aircraft as an assembly riveter on the Gulfstream II. Mike tried to save money to go to flight school, but he managed to spend it all on his car or on alcohol. After work, he would get together with friends. They'd work out with weights, drink at a local bar, go to car races, or do a little racing themselves. "Hey, Mike," Johnny shouted to the driver of the car next to him. He raced the engine out of his 289 Ford on the lonely piece of highway. "When that light turns green, you'll be eating my exhaust." "Oh, yeah?" Mike shouted back above the roar of the engines. It was Saturday night. "Smoke from my tires is going to blind your eyes." "Loser buys drinks," Johnny shouted back. "Well, I hope you have money." Mike laughed, his eyes fixed on the light. The light changed and Mike nailed his foot to the pedal. Tires screamed, engines roared, and Mike pulled away with his 283 Chevy, beating his friend. While they were settling their drinking bets in the local bar, another friend, Jimmy Carney, walked in. "Hey, Mike, when are you coming over to the house to work out?" Jimmy asked through the smoky haze. "Monday night," Mike answered, leaning back and tipping his chair up on 2 legs. Weeks and months went by. Mike worked out with Jimmy, and they also worked on their cars in Jimmy's barn-like garage, which is nestled in the woods away from Jim's house. One cold Saturday night in February, when Jimmy was in upstate New York, Mike went to the garage alone to finish work on his new red Triumph convertible. While he was under the car, on his back, the jack holding it up slipped and the car fell, pinning him to the ground. "Ugh!" Mike grunted as the weight of the car pushed the air out of his chest. The frame lay across his chest. His head, shoulders, and arms were under the car. His lower torso and legs stuck out. "Oh, thank God it's my TR3 and not my Chevy," he thought. He struggled to get his arms in a position of leverage so he could brace the frame and relieve the pressure on his chest, maybe even slide out, but it didn't work. "What now?" he thought. "Hey!" Mike yelled. "Can anybody hear me?" "Nobody's even here," he thought to himself. "There weren't any lights on at the house when I drove by, and even if someone were there, they couldn't hear me at this distance." The damp cold was getting to him. He began to think about God and his own lifestyle. I know I've ignored you, God," Mike prayed, "living for myself, but if you help me now, I'll go back to church." Then Mike paused. "Oh, what kind of bargain is that? Who do I think I'm kidding? I won't go back to church. But, Lord, I still need help." Suddenly, Mike saw headlights flash under the closed barn doors, heard a car door slam, and saw from under the car someone sliding the barn door open. "Jimmy, hey, is that you?" a friend asked when he saw Mike's legs sticking out from under the car. "No, it's me, Mike. Is that you, Mark?" Mike recognized the voice. "Yeah, what are you working on under there?" "Nothing, I'm stuck. The jack slipped." "You're kidding," Mark exclaimed. "I wish it were. It's been a long hour. Can you get this thing off me?" "Sure." Mark hoisted up the side of the car, and Mike slid out. Mike was surprised. "Well, I hate to say it, but I didn't know you were that strong, Mark. You lifted that car pretty high, pretty easy. By the way, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be away at college." "Oh, just a weekend break. Where's Jimmy?" "Out of town." "Oh," Mark said, walking back to his car. He got in and drove off. Mike finished working on his car, conveniently forgetting God and his prayer, but a few months later, Mike ran into Mark again. "Hey, welcome back, Mark. By the way, I never thanked you for lifting that car off of me." "What car?" Mark asked. "You know, Mark, when you came home for a weekend last semester, you stopped by looking for Jimmy. You found me in his garage under the TR3. "Oh, what are you talking about?" was Mark's surprising response. "Mark, you were there. Booze is destroying your memory cells." Mike laughed and walked away, but then he remembered his prayer that night. "Nah," he said, shaking his head. A few weeks later, Mike stopped by the pub where Jimmy worked, part-time, bartending. "What can I get you, Mike?" "Make it a 7 and 7, Mike answered, looking around the packed room. "Look at these guys sitting around drinking away, wasting their lives." "Hey, you drink too, Mike. What's the problem?" "Jimmy, we have fun driving around, going to the Hamptons, watching the girls at Robert Moses Beach, water skiing in Long Island Sound, but you know what?" "What?" Jimmy answered, toweling a glass dry. "We're miserable." "Oh, come on, Mike. Speak for yourself. We're having fun." "Not really. We laugh a lot when we get together and drink, but there's no peace." "That's why we drink." "There must be more to life than this," Mike insisted. "Yeah, don't worry about it. Life is short." "I don't know how short it is," Mike said. "The way I was taught, there's a God and a hereafter." "Hey, enough of this. Next drink's on me." Jimmy poured another glass. "Thanks," Mike responded. "By the way, I'll be away next week." "Where?" Jimmy asked. He mixed Mike's drink. "My sister's getting married to a minister's son in Lancaster, Massachusetts. It's only a weekend thing. I'll be back Sunday night." "Yeah, preacher's kid, huh?" "Yeah, Seventh-day Adventist. My sister and I grew up in that church off and on, so when she went to college, she chose Atlantic Union College. It belongs to the church." "Yeah, see you when you get back," Jimmy said. The Friday before the wedding, Mike, his mother, and his younger brother Alan drove to the little Massachusetts town. Little did Mike know that it would be the beginning of a whole new life for him. "Mom," Mike said as they sped along the freeway, "you must be excited about visiting California." She was planning to go there with relatives after the wedding. "It's been 15 years since we left," she replied as Mike slowed to pay a toll. "I always hoped to take you kids back before you grew up. Maybe someday you'll get back to where you were born and see the towns you lived in." "Which ones?" Mike asked, trying to picture them in his mind. "Oh, you know, San Francisco, Richmond, Fresno, a few others." "Yeah, I know. Which relatives are you going with?" "You remember your cousin Lynn DeMott from California, don't you?" "Yeah, sure do. 5 years ago she came with Grandpa and Grandma to visit with us at our old house in Brentwood. Lynn married a seminary student, Paul Egan. They're both going to Debbie's wedding." "What's a seminary?" Mike asked. "Paul is planning to be a Seventh-day Adventist minister, and a seminary is where they train after college. The Adventist Seminary is in Berrien Springs, Michigan." "To each his own," Mike said. "As for me, I just can't wait till this wedding thing is over so I can get back home." When they arrived in Lancaster, they drove to the home of Debbie's in-laws-to-be. "Pastor and Mrs. Remick, I'd like you to meet my mother and my brothers, Mike and Alan," Debbie said. Mike's mother spotted Paul and Lynn in the corner of the crowded living room. "Let's go over there, Mike. I want you to meet your cousins." Mike shook Paul's hand and gave Lynn a hug. They talked about Lynn's visit 5 years earlier and about some family back in California that Mike didn't even remember. His parents had moved to New York when he was 6 years old. Saturday came and all went to church, and on Sunday was the wedding. "Well, Mom," Mike said during the reception, "let's get your luggage and pack it in the Egan's car." "What's the hurry?" his mother asked. The reception was winding down. The bride and groom had just left. "Alan and I are anxious to get started back. We don't want to get in too late." "Okay, just a minute." His mother looked around for Paul and Lynn. "There they are," she said, spotting them across the reception hall by the punch bowl. "Well, Aunt Doris," Lynn said as they approached, "ready to go?" "Just about. Can you come by the dorm where we're staying to pick up my baggage?" "Someday I'm going to go to California, too," Mike told Paul and Lynn, "but right now I just want to get out of here." He turned to his mother. "Let's get you packed." "Why don't you come with us, Mike? Come to California right now," Lynn exclaimed impulsively. "Are you kidding?" Mike laughed. "I have a job to think about. Besides, I only packed for this weekend, not for a month." "So what?" Lynn replied. "We go to laundromats more often. Come, we got room in the car." "Yeah, go ahead," Alan said. "I can drive back alone." "Well, if you're crazy enough to ask me, I'm crazy enough to accept. California, here I come." The next morning, the four of them started the long drive to California. As they traveled, Mike had time to observe his new cousin Paul. He noticed a peace in Paul that was compelling. Mike certainly didn't have it, nor did any of his friends in New York. After many miles on the road, Mike said, "Hey, you know what bugs me? Christians think they're better than the rest of us." "Well, unfortunately, some do think that," Paul said, steering the four-door Le Mans down the open highway. "You admit that?" Mike was surprised. "Sure," Paul answered, "but it's not a true Christian attitude. A real Christian acknowledges his source of goodness, God." Once in California, Mike's mother stayed with her own mother, and Mike traveled on with his cousins. Part of Paul's seminary training involved working with an evangelist in Hayward, California. All three of them stayed at a church member's home. Every night, Mike attended the evangelistic meetings with Paul and Lynn. He heard sermons on God's love and soon coming, but not until the final night was he convinced about his own need for God as his personal friend. For the first time, Mike heard an altar call. "God loves you very much," the minister declared, his voice echoing in a large auditorium. "He wants to come into your life to end your loneliness, to become your friend." The room was quiet except for the minister's voice. "Bow your heads in prayer," he instructed. "If you want to give your heart to Jesus, come up here." Mike glanced around to see if anyone was going forward. He felt uncomfortable. That doesn't apply to me. He thought, I'm pretty good, basically. I don't hurt anyone. But suddenly, like a set of cymbals banging together deep in his soul, he seemed to hear, "Mike, go up." "What?" Mike responded, startled. "Not me. This is for sinners, not me." "Mike, go up," he heard again, this time more like a whisper. No, Mike said as the minister continued to invite people forward. It's not for me. Mike, go up. The voice was relentless. Is that God calling me? Mike wondered in surprise. He reached a decision. I'll do it. But when he tried to stand up, his body felt like 300 pounds of lead. I can't move. But the voice still called. Mike rose quickly and walked forward. Suddenly, a river of peace flowed over him. He felt warmth he'd never felt before to his core. He felt the peace he longed for. Things that once seemed important, alcohol, rock music, racing, suddenly lost their appeal.
You've been listening to Plane Crash by Michael Diamond. If you're enjoying the story so far, tune in for the next chapter. And meanwhile, you can visit my YouTube channel where you'll find stories like these, Bible stories, mission stories, as well as Bible and history skits for kids and adults. See you next time.